So I ran across a Kickstarter campaign that recently ended for a comic book titled Footpath, Dangerous Nights. It was written by Jonathan Hedrick with art from Marcelo Salaza, and it's being published by Page One Comics. It is a independent comic book publisher that's founded by Alfred Paige. And so I reached out to Alfred. He and I connected on social media to talk a little bit about not just this comic, but also about the plans for this series, as well as its place within a bigger universe that he is spinning off of his series titled c.h.e.s.s, which is available on Global Comics. But Alfred was kind enough to give me a digital copy of Footpath to take a look at and give my thoughts on it. And just real quick, if you are a fan of espionage, or if you're a fan of 90s styles comic book, this just might be for you. There's a lot that, whether you're an espionage fan or a 90s image comics fan, that you would get out of this. But with that being said, here are my quick thoughts. So, as I mentioned, Footpath spins out of a bigger universe that Alfred created that's based off his comic book series c.h.e.s.s. And c.h.e.s.s is available on Global Comics for you to read digitally if you are into the type of story that c.h.e.s.s does and that universe provides. And again, it is really a lot on the side of espionage. c.h.e.s.s itself almost has a feel somewhat of Suicide Squad, the team of spies and just individuals who are under the thumb of one individual who just sends them out there on personal missions. And if they're successful, good. If they're not and they're captured or killed, the government washes their hands of them. But the only difference is there are no bombs planted in their heads. But Footpath spins off for that. And again, as I mentioned, it is a really good story for those who are fans of espionage. You go in, you're a super spy. Well, not necessarily a super spy like a super soldier, but you're a super spy with great skills. And you go in, you complete the mission, you get out, and there's a bunch of gunfire and there's a bunch of martial arts and fighting in between. But again, if you're a fan of 90s styles comic, this will also draw you in as well, because that was one of the first things that I noticed, especially with the art from Marcelo Salaza. When you look at the characters, you see a lot of what you may have seen in those early days of Image Comics, whether you were a fan of Gen 13, or if you were a fan of Wildcats, or if you were a fan of the Kindred, or if you were a fan of Youngblood. Just that style of comics where the characters are very structured and stylized, and the women are quite proportionate to what we are expecting them to do. The main character, Footpath, is a female who, again, throughout the issue, looks very beautiful, very sexy, whether she is in her gear going into the mission or in the undercover role that she takes once she makes her way to the target home that is in the issue. She's very sexy, very form-fitting, wear very form-fitting clothes. And there are some pages where you kind of wonder whether or not she may have something on under that dress, and she does. When you get through some of the pages in the story. But again, it's a lot of espionage in this. She is on a mission to find the target, find out whether or not the rumors about this target is true, and if so, plant bombs, destroy it, get out. And so that's the mission. Again, bing, bang, boom. Go in, get it done, and get out. But of course, with missions such as that, it's not as easy as getting in and getting out. There's going to be a little riffraff and trouble along the way. But the overall target turns out to be this group that basically have kidnapped and killed individuals for the purpose of creating the perfect soldier, more or less. And when you see this soldier, and they call it Prometheus, you almost get reminded of what you will see from a Frankenstein monster. You will see, different body parts attached to this character, who is just this super being, this just powerful, almost monster that you are looking at on the page. But I thought that was really interesting in how they presented Footpath, because again, if you read her backstory, and the backstory for her is on the Kickstarter campaign page. She's someone who grew up in a wealthy family, who, after losing one of her parents, she lost her mother, was raised by a absent dad and a bunch of maids and nannies. And from that, she went on to learn martial arts, and she was approached to join this organization and to be a spy. But when you go and you look at the story, you see that she is a very determined, very confident character. She knows what to do and how to do it, and even in situations where she finds herself trapped, she is confident enough to know she can get herself out of it, even when we get to the climax of this issue where she is fighting this big, huge monster, this Frankenstein-looking monster that's known as Prometheus. And so, again, she goes in, she figured out that the rumors about Prometheus is true, and so the mission is, if it's true, plant the bombs, destroy it, and get on out. And so she does just that while taking out the other bad guys that are within the story, mainly the bodyguards and the boss of this issue, the one who is responsible not only for putting this monster together, but also hosting the auction to auction Prometheus off to the highest bidder. So you get a lot of that in the issue, and get in, get out, shoot the bad guys, plant the bombs, and boom, the house is blown up. And so you get while this mission is successful, you get a bit of a surprise at the end, which tells you that while the mission is successful, the story is not over. So I won't spoil that for you, even though the campaign is over for Footpath Dangerous Nights. Page 1 is already going out and preparing for another issue. And this second issue is actually going to be a crossover that they're going to be doing with Haunted Pizza Comics. There's another independent comic book publisher that's out there that does a lot of Kickstarter campaigns and does a lot of independent publishing as well. But a little bit about the art. Like I mentioned, if you're a fan of 90s style Image comics and the characters that appeared in a lot of those series from Image, you would really dig this art as well. Again, Footpath herself is a beautiful woman, and the art from Marcelo Salaza doesn't even attempt to hide that. Again, when you look at some of the clothes that she's wearing while she's on this mission, she's in the evening gown as she goes into this party, which turns out to be a secret auction. The dress is very tight, very revealing, much like you would see in the comics of the day. And that's fine. I didn't have an issue with it. Again, I truly enjoyed that style of art. I was really into a lot of stuff at Image in the 90s, particularly Wildcats and eventually Gen 13 as well. But again, he Marcelo Salaza did a great job with drawing this character Footpath, but also in depicting how much of a challenge Prometheus was as this Frankenstein style monster who had the body parts of several different individuals attached to him, and just towering over Footpath. But she gets out, the house goes boom, and again we think the story is over until we get to that last panel and we see that it's not. So it will be interesting to see how Jonathan Hedrick will take us into that next journey with Footpath, knowing that things, at least for her, is not as over as she would think. But before all of that occurs, before we get into the next issue, or at least the fallout per se from Footpath, they are going to be doing a crossover with Haunted Pizza Comics that is going to pit Footpath with Goth, which is a Haunted Pizza character, and that one is going to be titled Hostile Assets. So Hostile Assets will be launching soon on Kickstarter, but the link is there if you want to sign up and be notified for when it goes live on Kickstarter. I've already signed up for it myself. Again, it's something that when you look at it, it is drawn in that style of comics that you've seen in Image in the 90s, in those early days of the 90s. And one of the things that Alfred Paige mentioned to me when he and I were communicating about Footpath itself and what's going to happen with this story, this crossover with Footpath and with Goth, is we're definitely going to see an homage of sorts. So if I mentioned the Kindred earlier, if you remember that story from Image and what that was about, you will see in this crossover with Goth that Footpath and Goth will kind of serve in that role where you saw in the Kindred, where it was some of the characters from the Wildcats that teamed up and handled some beasts that were going around at that time. So just if you look at the Kickstarter page, you will see that it is somewhat different than the Kindred itself, but it goes along that line with regards to the plotting. And Alfred mentioned that he in putting that together, they really wanted it to be an homage to the Kindred and what that story was about back in the 90s. So I'm looking forward to taking a look at that. Like I said, I've already signed up for the pre-launch, so I'll be getting notified when it is available. I'll have the link if you want to sign up to it as well for the pre-launch. It'll be in the notes at the bottom, so take a look at that. And again, if that's your style of comics, if that's a story that piques your interest, take a look at it and sign up for it. But again, Footpath Dangerous Nights was a really good story, and as you could see from some of the the cover and some of the art that is shown in the video. Again, if that's the style of art that you are into, just on the art alone, it's worth it in my opinion. And I'm hoping that when the campaign kicks off, that it will allow backers to get who may have missed out on Dangerous Nights like I did, to pick up a copy for themselves, whether digitally or in paperback form. But yeah, Footpath Dangerous Night is a good way to kick off this story. From how I read it and my understanding, just reading that story alone, you don't need to read any of the other stories to just get what you need to know about Footpath herself. Again, and her details, if you search for Footpath on Kickstarter, you can get details of who she is as an individual. And I'm pretty sure that we will probably see more as Footpath's story continues. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Again, for not knowing what the story was going to be about until I got digital issue, other than what was on the Kickstarter campaign, very impressed, and interested to see what comes next, not only with Footpath and the continuation from Dangerous Nights, but also from the crossover with Goth that will be going live really soon. Again, the pre-launch page is already up on Kickstarter. But again, I want to thank Alfred for providing me a digital copy so I can take a look, see what I missed in the campaign, and give my thoughts on what I thought on the issue. I really enjoyed it. If I had to put a number score on it, I would give it a strong 7-9, maybe even an 8. Again, for a number one issue. Again, it's not titled number one, but it's the first issue with coming off of this story with Footpath spinning out of the universe from Global Comics. And I'll have a link to c.h.e.s.s as well if you are familiar with Global Comics or interested in going the route with Global Comics with reading comics digitally. You could take a look at that as well. But that's it. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Footpath. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be looking forward to seeing more of it once the crossover goes live with Goth. And yeah, thank you all for listening, and I truly appreciate all the support. And I'll see you all next time.